Hey, what's up? This is Tony from Christianity Now. Thanks for tuning in and watching or listening to our content. Recently, I shared a YouTube short on our Facebook page that has caused quite the controversy. The question is asked, can I lie to Nazis in order to protect innocent Jews? The answer is given rather passionately, of course you're going to lie, because you have a greater obligation to protect innocent life than you do to tell the truth to murderous Nazis. Then the speaker that makes this claim also makes the claim that there is biblical precedent. So, what issue do I take with this? And I certainly take issue with it. Well, here's the problem: all lying is sin. And obviously, to hand over innocent lives once you have taken responsibility for them is also sin. When people think the choice is binary, then they espouse the false notions of situational ethics or graded absolutism. There is not a binary here. I can do God's will, not lie, and protect innocent life. The biblical precedent is actually 1 Samuel 16. God told Samuel to go to the house of Jesse and anoint one of his sons king over Israel to replace Saul. Samuel had a reasonable objection. If Saul's men find him and ask what he is doing and he tells the truth, then they will detain him, resulting in his death, or they will just kill him right then, which, again, he dies. God had a solution. He told Samuel, carry with you a heifer, and if anybody asks, say that you are going to sacrifice unto the Lord. Thereby, Samuel was allowed to protect himself and also tell the truth. You know, there are lots of folks that are bringing up examples from historical accounts, such as Rahab the harlot and the midwives. Rahab lied. Now, she is in Faith's Hall of Fame, Hebrews chapter 11, but she wasn't considered faithful for her lie, any more than David was considered a man after God's own heart for fornicating with Bathsheba and then manipulating the situation to where later he could get her husband Uriah the Hittite out of the way by an act of murder. Think about the good that eventually came from David's indiscretion with Bathsheba. The good that came out of that was Solomon. Solomon's the wisest man that ever lived and arguably the greatest king that has ever ruled. Even so, David's sin was not justified because of the good which came from it. Now, Rahab was considered faithful, as I said, even though she did not act perfectly. This should offer us great hope. This should not make us feel any kind of anxiety or bitterness towards the morality of God. Now, let's talk about the midwives in Exodus chapter 1. The midwives, they're an interesting case. The text does not demand that we interpret what they did and what they said as a lie. They gave Pharaoh an answer that would satisfy him and keep them safe. Their answer is that the Hebrew women are stronger than the Egyptian women. And the Hebrew women, by the time the midwives get to the Hebrew women, have already given birth, so they cannot carry out the terrible order of Pharaoh, which is to kill the male children. Now, I don't believe the midwives were lying for a minute. However, I also don't believe that they were passive. I believe the text demands that they were taking an active role in what they did. So here's what I think happened. The answer they gave to Pharaoh whenever Pharaoh asked, why are you not doing what I'm telling you to do and killing these male children of the Hebrews? Well, because the Hebrew women are more vigorous than the Egyptian women, and they already have their children birthed by the time we get there. And they don't tell Pharaoh that they're slow walking, that they're taking their sweet time to get there on purpose so that the Hebrew women would already have birthed their children. Folks, nothing in the text demands that we interpret what they said to be a lie, and it is not their fault that upon them telling what I interpret as the truth and what many people interpret as the truth, that Pharaoh didn't ask any more questions. Now, if Pharaoh would have said, Well, are you not getting there on purpose? Can you go any faster to get there? And if they said, well, no, we can't go any faster to get there, then we might interpret that as a lie. Lying is always wrong. And biblical precedent is 1 Samuel. If you know that you're going to be going into a sticky situation, do something like Samuel did. God said, take you a heifer, and if anybody asks what you're doing, tell them you're going down there to sacrifice unto the Lord. The midwives, they feared God, and they didn't want to murder. So whenever Pharaoh said, why are you not murdering in my name? They said, well, the Hebrew women are more healthy and have more vigor than the Egyptian women. And they don't use midwives like the Egyptian women do. I believe that was true. And by the time we get there, because they haven't called for the Egyptian midwives, by the time we get there, then they've already had their babies. All of that is true. If I'm hiding Jews in my house and the Gestapo comes and knocks on my door, the opposite of lying is not, yes, there are Jews in my house, come on in. I've got a secret trap door down here in the basement. I'll take you where they are. Listen, it is a moral absolute that committing sin in order to do good is a violation of God's law. The problem is when people hear a hypothetical situation that the only two things that can be done is to compromise their morality and God's morality and sin against God, or totally cooperate with the Nazis and hand over the Jews. If in that situation, I got a knock on the door asking me, are you hiding Jews in your house? Then I'd simply say, why would you think I'd do that? I'd go on to say, do you see any Jews? And then I'd say, do you realize how crazy I'd have to be to endanger my family by hiding Jews in my house? Look, there are no Jews here for you. Everything I just said is truth, folks. There are no Jews here for the Gestapo. They're not for him. And I would have to be crazy a little bit by the world standard to hide the Jews in my house, thereby endangering my family. The point of the matter is, we cannot do evil that good may come. And I know a lot of people have had issue with Romans 3, 7, and 8. They say it's been taken out of context. It's not been taken out of context. When you put it in its context, Paul is talking to Jews, and the Jews were making the argument that since our unbelief, since our sin allows God to show us more grace, then our sin is actually righteous. If my lie or my falsehood abounds to glorifying the truth of God, then how can I be judged a sinner? Paul makes the universal statement, the moral absolute. He asks a rhetorical question. So do you think that we can do evil that good may come? Well, if you'll allow me to appropriate the language of my brother, the Apostle Paul, from other areas of Scripture, God forbid. I hope this video finds you well. I hope if you like it, you subscribe to the channel, and I hope you share it with your friends.